Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Theme Park Society, a place where we talk about guest experiences in our favorite destinations with a special focus on the sweetest place on Earth, HersheyPark in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We are beyond excited about today's episode because we are really nearing the opening of HersheyPark for the year. Depending on the time you are listening to this episode, the park could potentially be open for the year, but maybe you have not yet been there in 2022. So regardless of your situation or the time you are listening to this episode, I promise that there is something in here for you. Whether you turned this episode on to learn about the park, or maybe you just want to hear someone talk about the sweetest place on Earth, stay tuned because this episode is for you. Today, in celebration of being so close to park open, we wanted to talk about things you need to do to get ready to visit HersheyPark in 2022. So, like I said earlier, maybe you are listening to this episode prior to the park opening, or maybe the park has opened and you are heading there for your first visit of the year. Either way, all of these tips and tricks will apply to you. So, let's get started with the absolute basics, and that is going to be tickets, season passes, and park entry. The approach will be the same for either season passes or park tickets, and that approach is simply to get your tickets today. Here's the thing. Do whatever you can do to avoid having to stand in the ticketing line on your arrival day. Virtual tickets are going to save you so much time and stress. If you are local and you purchased a season pass, get it all situated and ready to use prior to your first park visit. You are able to pick up your season passes and your season pass holder appreciation bag already. Quick note though, the season pass holder appreciation bag is for king-size pass holders only. But regardless, get your park entry ready prior to your first park visit. I say this because the lines at the ticketing counters do tend to get pretty long, especially early in the day and especially early in the season. Standing in these lines is really going to eat away at your park time, so get yourself ready to enter the park before you get there. Digital passes are a huge time saver and can be easily accessed by your phone while you're on the go. If you are someone who really likes to have physical paper tickets, print them out beforehand. Do not wait until you get to the park to then get into the ticketing line. Just do not do it. Get yourself into a position where you show up to the park ready to get into the park. You want to get right into the entry line, not the ticketing line. So this is a huge one, and please trust me on this. You really want to get your day started on the right note, and this is the way to do it. Now, believe me, I do understand that there are often instances where you will need to stand in a ticketing line or maybe even a guest service line. I do this a few times a year, and the park staff is always super helpful, but the bottom line is that you are eating away at park time by doing this. So please think ahead to save yourself some time. Now that we know our first step is getting ready to enter the park, let's look at a quick planning tip. Now, this episode is not about planning your perfect HersheyPark trip, but we will talk all about that in a future episode. Today, we just want to focus on a particular subject, and that is planning out how many days you want to spend in the park. This is important to know before you enter the park because knowing this information beforehand will really shape out the way you approach your visit. I will tell you honestly that Hershey in general is more than a one-day visit. But if you plan on only visiting the park for one day, you will also want to consider whether or not you want to do other things on property, but outside of the park gates. This would include things like the zoo, the Hershey Story Museum, the Hershey Gardens, and so much more. These three things I mentioned in particular are open year-round, so maybe you plan on visiting them during the off-season. But if you plan on doing these experiences on the same trip you are planning on entering the park, you are going to want to figure out a basic timeline of how you want to fit all of this in. Another thing to note as we approach park open is whether or not you will be visiting the boardwalk, which is the large water park within HersheyPark. Two things to note about this. One, it is included in all of your park tickets, so you do not need to budget it as another expense. Two, the boardwalk does not open until some point in May. I forgot the actual date, but this will definitely help the planning phase if you plan on visiting the park shortly after it opens for the year. Now, I mentioned the zoo earlier, and that is another experience that is included in your park ticket. However, you would have to enter the zoo from the park in order to redeem the visit with your park ticket. If you do plan on visiting the zoo on a non-park day, you would have to enter from the zoo's main gates and you will pay an additional charge, or you can provide your valid season pass to enter. If you have not yet visited the zoo, please note that it is generally a self-guided experience that can take you anywhere from 15 minutes to over 2 hours depending on how much you want to walk around. When I visit, I typically find myself visiting for no longer than 1 hour, but it really depends on what my day is looking like and who I'm with. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but again, it is completely up to you. Let's take a look at another aspect of getting ready for HersheyPark in 2022, and that is going to be your park bag. If you are a regular park goer, you know what I mean by park bag. If you are a regular Walt Disney World guest, then you really know how important the park bag planning is. I could do an entire episode on what to bring in your park bag, but I'll give you a quick essentials list for my park bag when it comes to visiting HersheyPark. Obviously, we all have different needs, so everyone's park bag will look a little different, but I will quickly run you through mine as I visit the park many times throughout the year. For starters, I generally prefer a small, compact bag. Something small that goes over the shoulder is perfect. This makes it easier to put to the side of rides, and it makes it really easy to walk through a crowded park. A small shoulder bag is also ideal for sitting on benches throughout the park because you do not need to remove the bag to comfortably lean back. Let's talk about what's inside the bag though. My most important item would be a small power bank for my phone, as well as a charging cable. This is important as we see more phone usage in the park every day. This includes using the phone to view park maps, wait times, food menus, texting other people in your party, mobile ordering food, and so much more. Like I said earlier, digital passes to enter the park are huge time savers, so phone battery life is super important in the park. The next thing that I carry in my park bag is my car keys. This is a simple one, no need to explain here. It's just easier to have my keys in the bag rather than my pockets. I also carry my physical season pass in my park bag. You will be doing a lot of walking in the park, so little bandages are a great park bag essential as well, as is a bottle of sunscreen, and then remember to pack essentials if you are going to be visiting the water park. Again, everyone's park bag will look a little different, but the more compact you can make it, the easier time you'll have going through bag check, getting around the park, sitting down, and so much more. Speaking of bag checks, you may or may not have your bag checked when entering the park. It just really depends on whether or not the security machine beeps or not when you walk through. I've had it happen to me a few times, but even when you have to have your bag checked, they are super quick. They are very thorough and they are very safe about it. This is one of those instances where a smaller bag could potentially save you time because it would be a lot quicker for them to view a small bag. So yeah, have your park bag ready to go and start thinking about what you need to pack before your park day. Do not wait until the morning of to pack your bag. And don't bring any items unless you think you will really use them. One thing I definitely recommend that you pack is a small rain poncho. With that being said, another way to be ready for the park is to be ready for any weather. I am personally in the park more than the average person, so I am there rain or shine. I've been in the park on the hottest days, and I've been in the park during absolute downpours. But here's the thing. I enjoy every trip. Now, obviously, we cannot control the weather, but we definitely have some control over how we approach a trip in the rain. And this is incredibly important if you are planning your trip out in advance. I understand that a lot of people may only visit Hershey once or twice a year, and the exact time that they visit may be subject to something like their work schedule or maybe some other prior commitment. So, a lot of people plan their trips out months in advance and are unable to change at the last minute. You do not know what the weather is going to be like that far off in the future. You can try to plan according to the monthly rain averages, but you still may end up having a rain-filled trip. Do not stress this one though. Rain does not have to ruin your trip. Yes, some things will be out of your control, especially if you are a coaster enthusiast, but if your visit is not 100% coaster centered, you can have a phenomenal trip in the rain. Just be ready for it. Wear shoes that you do not mind getting wet, because walking around in wet shoes can be a bit of a bummer. Like I mentioned earlier, bring a small poncho. And the reason I say small poncho is the fact that you can buy these ponchos for super cheap, and you can find them folded up so small that they literally fit in your pocket. The park does sell some pretty neat ponchos, and they are actually pretty affordable for in-park rain gear, but if you are out and about in the park, and it starts to rain out of nowhere, having that emergency poncho in your pocket is an absolute treasure. You can buy these in bulk from places like Walmart or Amazon, which is typically what I do, and I always take a bunch of them with me when I go to HersheyPark or Disney World. Have them ready to go, and your family will thank you for it later. When it rains, just expect to walk around wet and enjoy the lower crowd levels. The park really clears out when it starts raining. In the summer, we do see a lot of quick rain showers. They may be strong for about an hour or so, but oftentimes we see them come and go real quick. If this happens midday, you'll often see a lot of the crowds leave, and a lot of them don't return until the next day. So you could potentially see lower crowd levels after the sun comes back out, just depending on the day, of course. So just be ready for the rain. It happens, but if you accept the fact that you're going to get wet and you're willing to walk around with ponchos and get a little messy, you will have a great time. The zoo is another great visit in the rain as well. I can make an entire episode on how to do HersheyPark in the rain, and I probably will do that sometime soon. But the main idea is to not let it affect your trip negatively. You can still have a wonderful time in Hershey when it's raining. Another thing you'll want to do is view the park map and get it on your phone before entering the park. If you are familiar with HersheyPark, then you can feel free to skip this step. But if you are not familiar with the park, then start looking at the map today. Now, on this podcast, we always refer to park areas by their specific names. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I am simply saying to familiarize yourself with the general locations of the main attractions. For instance, note where the zoo entrance is prior to entering the park. I'll give you the answer on this one. The zoo entrance is right next to the Hershey Triple Towers. As a newer guest, that is going to mean a lot more to you than me telling you to walk up the hill from Pioneer Frontier. So you get the idea. Figure out where the main attractions are on the map, and then you'll at least have a better idea of where you are in the park when you are actually walking around. The map is easily accessible through the HersheyPark app. And speaking of the app, here is a huge step in getting ready to visit the park, and that step is going to be download the official HersheyPark app. If you've listened to this show before, you know how much I talk about the value that is found in the HersheyPark app. Here you will find park maps, park menus, live wait times, show times, and so much more. You will also need the app if you want to mobile order food at dining locations throughout the park. The app is also super helpful for those who have dietary needs and restrictions because you can find that general information for each dining location in the app. So yes, download the app and please get familiar with the layout of the app before you enter the park. That way you are not wasting phone battery and park time trying to figure out how it works. It is super easy, very user-friendly, and incredibly helpful. The official map for the zoo is located in the HersheyPark app as well, so that will definitely come in handy. Another step I want to look at is accessibility in the park if needed. If you or someone in your party may need a wheelchair or an ECV rental, you will be able to grab the prices and location in the HersheyPark app. Now, we did an entire episode on accessibility in the park where we went into detail about wheelchair rentals, guests with hearing needs, service animals, and so much more. So please check that out if you'd like to learn more. But the thing I wanted to mention in this episode is the fact that the rentals are first come, first serve, and they could potentially sell out for the day. So everyone is going to want to plan accordingly for that. But again, we have an entire episode on accessibility in the park, and it is available right now. You'll be able to stream it on whatever platform you are listening to this episode on. So whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even YouTube, you should be able to find that episode right now. This next step applies to everyone this year because this is something new for 2022. HersheyPark has now gone cashless. Obviously, the park is going to accept all major credit and debit cards, HersheyPark gift cards, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay. But you can also mobile order food throughout the park, which a lot of people have already been doing. Now, there are going to be cash-to-card kiosks stationed around the park for guests to convert cash to a prepaid card for use around the park, and there will not be a fee for using these kiosks. I have heard that cash will be accepted by the carts that you see walking around selling lemonade and popcorn and items like that, but if that's even true, it looks like that will be the only thing accepting cash around the park, except for the cash-to-card kiosks, of course. You can purchase e-gift cards ahead of time as well, so you do have options, but be ready for this change coming this year. Another thing that I want to mention about getting ready for HersheyPark in 2022 is to continue consuming HersheyPark content. Now, even though I am a HersheyPark podcast/vlog, and I really do want you to subscribe, follow, and help my show grow, I'm still going to tell you that there are so many good content creators out there talking about HersheyPark. I won't name any of them specifically on here to save time, but trust me, there are some great shares out there telling you everything you need to know and more about HersheyPark. Now, again, we are a full-fledged show at this point, and even though we are only about 1 month into the game, we already have a bunch of HersheyPark content out there, and we are here to stay. If you want to stay HersheyPark happy all year long, then definitely stay up to date with us here and follow our show. We will continue to bring you HersheyPark content year-round, and we do get creative at times. You can check out our previous episode if you're interested to see us only pick one of each at HersheyPark. You will have to visit that episode to know what I mean by that, but anyway. Hershey is fun year-round, so we will be busy in the parks and on property bringing Hershey to you anytime, anywhere, and we look forward to it. I guess with that being said, we can close out this episode, so follow our show, find us on Instagram, and join us on property virtually. We really look forward to it. So again, with all of that being said, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk again real soon.